Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. That we really appreciate your time this afternoon to share this 1 hour with us. So today we are going to do some overview of our H-1B process, our internal process. So some basic concept about H-1B, and also we want to spend a little time on Trilby, our new system. And after that, we will cover something other than H-1B, some visa option other than H-1Bs. So my name is Chiwe Huang Ma, and I'm the Associate Director for Faculty and Scholar Support at Penn. And I'm joined by my colleague, very experienced and one of the best advisors in our office, Dan, here. And then we'll go through and start the H-1B options for you. Then I will let you start.
Thank you. So as Chiwei said, my name is Daniel Deck. I'm an advisor at ISSS, and I'm going to be starting with the H-1B process. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about a lot of changes that have been happening in the H-1B world over the past year, couple months. Some of it is important for us to go over. Other bits I may touch on, but just because I'm sure that you've heard about it in some way, but it may not be relevant to us. But in any case, let's get started. Here we go. So let's look at the basic concepts. So the idea of an H-1B is a temporary worker. So what does that mean? So they say it's an alien who is coming temporarily to the United States to perform services in a specialty occupation. So that's the key to the H-1B, is the specialty occupation part of that, which is why we're always asking for lots of different things about the position itself, such as the degree. So an H-1B requires the minimum of a bachelor's degree in a specific field that has a connection to the position. Licensing, so for example, medical doctors obviously need to have a PA medical license, and that's required at the time of filing, which is sometimes, I know I'm working with a lot of residents right now. Some of them are going through that licensure process, and I cannot file, even though they're in the process of that, even if their position starts on July 1st, until they have that license. And the candidate must meet all these requirements at the time of filing the petition, not exactly when the position itself starts. So those are really important to keep in mind as you're completing requests for H-1Bs, and as for us as well as we're filing them. H-1B are also permitted to have dependents with them, children, spouses. They're under the status called H-4, which does not typically allow for employment authorization, so they're not typically allowed to apply for an EAD. However, if the H-1B beneficiary is at an advanced stage of the green card, the legal permanent residency process, they can separately apply for employment authorization. All of these applications are independent. It's theirs. It's not sponsored by Penn, so we can help submit all that documentation along with the H-1B petition as a courtesy, but we are not permitted to review it, advise on it, in really kind of any way, despite many requests for that. So going back to the H-1B, the basics, kind of as what we already mentioned briefly, the H-1B position and petition is specific to a position, an employer, and a location. So Penn Medicine, and then a medical resident, for example. It's only allowed to have 6 years maximum, except for if certain steps have been taken or approved in the green card process, then we're allowed to go beyond the 6 years. But in general, H-1B is only permitted to be held for a period of 6 years. And we can only request 3 years maximum at a time. We cannot request the full 6 years in one shot. H-1B is really sought after for many reasons, but one of them is that it is considered dual intent. So it's listed as a non-immigrant status. However, it does allow for immigration proceedings to also be undertaken by the beneficiary, which many of our H-1B beneficiaries undertake. The petition itself must be filed by us at ISSS, and then we send it out to USCIS, which is the government agency who adjudicates our petitions. So the types of petitions, so the ways to gain status, there's essentially two, which is through the consular processing, where the scholar or employee obtains an H-1B visa at a U.S. consulate overseas, and the change of status is when the individual is here in the United States and they go to sleep in one status one night, and the next morning they wake up in H-1B status. The one big change that has happened in the past year is the $100,000 fee, which I'm sure we're all very aware of. That is specific to the consular processing process. So bringing foreign nationals and employees from overseas who do not currently hold an H-1B status or documents in any way, that fee is going to be applied to this individual. Um, that would be not only for consular processing at a U.S. consulate, but also for Canadian nationals who don't require a stamp in their passport. But that would also be requested of them. Proof of that would be requested at them of them at the port of entry when they're entering the United States. So we've discussed the initial ones. So that's the change of status and consular processing. There's also extensions. So if we're running up against the first 3 years that we've requested, we can request an extension. So the further 3 years, 1 year, however long you require, up to 3 years. And what's nice about the extension is it doesn't need to be necessarily approved in order for the employment to continue beyond the expiration date. With the receipt notice, employment authorization continues for 240 days, which is a nice way to continue employment without an approval notice. That applies to only these though, not the initials. Amendments, these are required to be filed in advance of any material changes to an H-1B position. These include things like changing of the positions, the position itself. So if moving from, for example, a postdoctoral position into a research associate position, or any other major changes in that position. Sometimes locations can require that. Sometimes just a notice of filing needs to be posted, but we can go over those on a case-by-case basis as they come up. There's also the change of employer, which is we also call portability. So when we have an employee working at one entity who wants to come to Penn but already holds H status, we file a port petition. And then there's a concurrent employment petition, which has a individual working at one company who will also be working at Penn for a period of time at the exact same time as their primary employment. So what are the duties required of hiring departments? So of course, hiring procedures, due diligence, all that stuff, making sure that the specific degree is required for a position and that the candidate has that degree and experience. So for example, for a postdoc, they have to have a PhD. They can't, that's just how it works. And they can't even have an ABD. They're not like all but dissertation. They need to have that PhD in order for that position to be able to have an H-1B submitted for it. Also, setting a reasonable start date, considering both internal and external processing times. H's can get complicated very, very quickly, and so that falls on us internally at ISSS to make sure that all gets done. But we want to make sure that we have enough time to put a good petition together and then send it out to USCIS. So with that, submitting an H-1B request to us at ISSS 6 months in advance is the best time because that gives us the most amount of time to work on the petition. Petitions can't be submitted in any way more than 6 months prior to the start date. So 6 months gives us the most amount of time, and at least 90 days in advance. That's the ideal time frame that we internally can work with. Applications with a start date less than 60 days from the start date, they are subject to a rush fee. And that you know, that's how it goes because of our processing time and how things can get tied up. And then, of course, part of the submission is a complete and thorough position description detailing what the position is, what the salary is, what the duties are, what the required educational level and education field of study is for that position, as well as any other requirements that are for that position itself. Once we have all that, it gets packaged up and it goes to one of the advisors. So, for example, myself or Chiwei or another one of the advisors at ISSS, and we will confirm that we have the case. We'll send an email. My practice is, and I believe a lot of the advisors are, we confirm we've received it, and then we'll send out our primary assessment of what we're looking at. This will require some information, some documents that we feel may help us get our head around the case itself so we can proceed. Um, and then, of course, during that time, it's important for any information that we request to be given to us in a timely manner so that if every once in a while, for example, I request information and I get information that I'm very much not expecting to get back, which can really, really delay the case because we need to really put our grasp that case, and it requires a much more thorough investigation. So prompt responses are always very much appreciated. Once we have the information, or at least enough information to do the wage analysis, that's what we do. It's called the prevailing wage. So what we do is we do a couple things. The first thing is we have to look at the wage and how it's related to similarly situated employees in this specific occupation in a specific area. So the Philadelphia area is most commonly used here. We do that internally, and we require to find the code. It's called a SOC code, which is a code the government uses for the position, and we use that to calculate basically what the minimum wage should be paid to an individual in that position. We still have here that we can request a prevailing wage determination from the Department of Labor. Quite frankly speaking, this is unrealistic given the timeline of H-1Bs and the processing time that the Department of Labor is taking for this. So this is not really something that I would say is a tool that's really available to us anymore, but it does exist in theory. We also look at the actual wage, which is that worksheet that you complete, where you're comparing employees internally and their wages, and so why you need to explain to us why certain individuals are paid more, for example, than that position, whether it be like experience, duties, qualifications, so that we can get a read on why the individual is being paid a certain way compared to his or her peers. So once we have all that, we submit what's called a labor conditions application to the Department of Labor, which we're seeing processing times now even out to 7 days. They were kind of a little up and down there for a little bit with the various government shutdowns and partial shutdowns, stuff like that. So, but they're back to about 7 days, which is nice and predictable. And once it's been certified by the Department of Labor, we can proceed with the case in wrapping it up, creating final arguments, stuff like that. Once we have all that, we submit it to USCIS with either regular premium processing. Regular processing right now, I just looked it up, is at 8 months. So pretty long. But premium processing still requires the USCIS to respond within 15 business days. So 3 weeks, more or less, for a response. So now we have the approval or the request for evidence once it's with USCIS. So requests for evidence, we don't like them. I don't think anyone does, but they do happen every once in a while, which requires a detailed response and adds time to the process. RFEs are, for the most part, unpredictable. We do every once in a while have a case where we think it's much more possible. We do notify you of that, but it's still sometimes just very unpredictable, and what they're going to be asking for is hard to know at times as well. So some are very simple to respond to, others are very, very lengthy and detailed. Once the case is approved, we get the approval notice. We're seeing approval notices arrive at our office about a week after we get the e-notification if you've done premium processing. So, and then of course we review the document itself, the dates, the information on it. We update our end, and then we notify you as well as the beneficiary to come pick up the notice um, from our office. Uh, if it needs to be shipped, which is unlikely now because of the consular processing and $100,000 fee, we can help you arrange for that as well. And of course, all documents um, should have copies and maintained in your records. So, with all of this, when can the employee begin? So, for the change of status, the individual cannot start the position until the petition has been approved and the start date has been reached. So those two conditions must be met. If abroad, can start once in the US, but again, unlikely that that's going to happen, but just in case, it is still a viable option. And if they're doing an extension or a change of employer or an amendment, that new employment, if it's an amendment, for example, or the extension can go beyond the authorization can go beyond the expiration date with the receipt confirmation from USCIS. So now that there's an H-1B, it's been approved, everything looks good. What are the ongoing responsibilities? So obviously, any changes to the approved employment need to be vetted by us to let us know, and then we can advise on how to proceed, whether that be a new notice of filing being posted or an amendment or something else needs to be done. But that all needs to happen before any of those changes take place. Also, there's a verification that comes every 6 months. Job title, degree required, work hours worked, everything like that. Those are all very important to keep track of. Also, for any termination of the beneficiary's employment, we need to know in advance. Um, and if there is a termination, employers are responsible for paying for the traveling fees to send the employee back home. Also, be aware of the expiration dates and apply for the extensions up to 6, 7 months in advance, kind of like what we already said. So we have the proper amount of time to get everything worked out. Just another slide here on the termination and resignation. So it's always important to consult us prior to any termination of any foreign national for that matter. And of course, send us a copy of the resignation and termination notice to us in advance so that we can review it and advise accordingly. This also should happen with any voluntary resignations, letting us know when that happens so we can also advise um, on what steps need to be taken. And of course, a lot of this can be done through the end of employment e-form in IPEN. Filing fees, we did this last year. We started this last year. It's been very successful and, in my opinion, very helpful when it comes to filing of cases. But there, we are now using Form G1450 for all the fees. So basically, what we do is we front the money with our Pro card, and then we bill the department at the end of the month in which the petition was submitted. So today is, March 12th. Yes. So March 12th. So if we have a case submitted today, at the end of March, that case will be billed to the department's budget code that was submitted in the e-form. Going to the proclamation for the 100,000 fee. This does apply to only petitions submitted after September 21st, last year, 2025. As we said, the beneficiaries are outside, do not have a visa. Um, Beneficiaries who are in the United States on a different status, but the petitioner requests consular notification, port of entry, or pre-flight inspection. It does apply to them. So this is kind of it's kind of repeating what we're saying is going to a U.S. consulate or port of entry for example, Canadian nationals. It's the same it's a different process, but same fee. Um, so that's something to always keep in mind. It does not apply to any petitions filed prior to this. And then, of course, with change of statuses, holding visas, or other statuses F, J, O, TN, E3, and so on. If you have any questions about whether or not an individual you're hiring would be subject to this, just email us. We'll probably have questions of our own to make sure we understand the situation better, but we'll be able to walk you through and explain whether or not the individual would be subject to that fee for their H-1B. Also, we have a new system, which many of you have probably been in. It's called Trilby. So now all new H-1B cases will be submitted through this new platform. We're calling it iHub, and so you can find how to log in on our website. If you're having trouble, just let us know. We'll get you set up on how to get in there. I believe the feedback has been very positive on its its user friendliness, and stuff like that. We're working our way through it as well. And I frankly think that it is a much better system. So I'm excited to keep working with this new system. In the meantime, we will still have iPen available for any existing cases that are in there. So it's kind of using two systems at once. I understand that can be a bit frustrating. We have to do it too. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about where a case is, how to work through things, just let us know, and we're happy to, work through it with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chiwe, who's going to talk about other statuses that allow for employment in the U.S.
Okay, thank you, everyone. By the way, before I start, okay, I will let you guys ask question at the end. All right, because I know that some BAs, some of you may have some question for Trilby, but then after I finish this, then we can ask questions. Okay, so I'm going to cover options other than H-1B. So there will be either OPT, some of the OPT student working in your department, and after OPT, maybe they want to change to H-1B. But then if H-1B is not an option, then there are TN option, E3 option, and then I also want to touch a little bit about B1, B2. Some department may want to invite some speaker over to give a talk. Okay, so that's not qualified for H-1B. So we want to let you know that whether B1, B2 would be a good option. And also we will talk a little bit about O1 and permanent resident, which is green card. Okay, next slide. Okay, so for OPT for international student after graduation, this is very common for a student, international student graduated from an U.S. university. Most of the time, they will get a 12-month of OPT. And if this student is on STEM, has a STEM major, this student, like up to 12 months, after the end of the 12th month, they will have another 24 months of additional time to work as an intern, well, to work in the US. Okay, so maybe in your department, there's someone in your department that they are working on OPT, and after OPT, they do have another 24 months of STEM OPT. So H-1B is not the only option that an international student or scholar could work for your department. Many of the international students, they do have this OPT and STEM OPT. And the good thing about OPT and STEM OPT is that Penn is not a sponsor, as the student's school is usually the sponsor. So what we need to do during OPT, we do not need to do anything. For STEM OPT, for your department, you will need to sign a form called I-983. The student will give you the form, and then you just have to complete as the employer. Okay, so this is about OPT. Then next slide. Okay, so this is the if a student just graduated from another university, or even a Penn student, okay, and they came to you said, hey, I would like to work for your department. Number one, that you want to make sure that the major field of study is very similar to the job duties that the position is going to offer. Okay, so if you are from the Department of Chemistry, you want to make sure, and then you guys offer a chemist job. You want to make sure that this person has something related to chemistry. The major field of study is related to chemistry. He or she cannot have a literature degree and come to apply for this position. Okay, number one. And number two, that you can ask for this OPT EAD card. This is sort of employment authorization card. And there is a start date and end date there. Just want to make sure that the person cannot start working for your department before the start date. And they cannot work beyond the end date. Okay, so the student has to bring this EAD card and go to onboarding. Okay, so the onboarding center will review the card and also other document, and then after that, the student can work for your department. Okay. Okay, so the next one is STEM OPT. Just like what I've mentioned, after 12 months of OPT, the student, if he or she has a STEM major, then they will be able to enjoy another 24 additional months. Okay, so what we have to do as an employer is to help them complete a training plan on Form 983. So the student has the responsibility to provide their own I-983 so that you can help them complete this part. There are several parts of the I-983, and there's a part called training plan, and they will need to be completed by your department. And once they complete it, the student has to submit this to the student's school, sponsoring school, and they will help this student with the rest of the STEM OPT process. Okay, so for Penn, as an employer, we do not need to help them submit anything with STEM OPT. We only need to help them complete the I-983 because we are not a sponsor. We are only the employer. Then next slide. Okay, so next one is TN. Okay, so TN visa has become increasing popular after H-1B has less than 100,000 policy in place. Okay, but TN is not for everyone. TN are only for citizens of Canada and Mexico. And TN also have a very specific profession list. Okay, so it's not every job at Penn will be qualified for TN. So TN is employer specific and it's also job specific. Okay, some job, for example, if it's a very clinical focused physician, then the position is not qualified for TN profession. And then nurses, most of the time, will be qualified for TN. Occupational therapist, physical therapist are qualified for TN. But then for example, physician assistant are not qualified. So there is a very clear list of TN perfection. So if you guys are interested in, please just check our website. We do have a list of the TN professions on our website so that you can take a look and see whether this could be an option for those potential employees that you plan to hire. So for TN, that most of the time initial period is 3 years maximum, and then there is no limit. Not like H-1B, the maximum time for H-1B are 6 years, but TN initial period 3 years, and you can help them extend indefinitely. That's the situation for now. Okay, and then TN, we can, just like H-1B, we can help people change status to TN in the United States. But some people like to travel to get TN It's easier, especially for Canadian. Okay, they can travel and come with a letter and come back on TN. For Mexican, they still need to get the visa interview. But TN is relatively easier than H-1B. Yeah, but then now it's become more and more complicated, but still it could be an option to consider. And then we do help our employees with TN. So if there is anyone in your department or any potential employees that you would like to sponsor with TN, please just submit a TN e-form through IPEN. Okay, it's still the old system. It's still through IPEN. So, and then we will go ahead and process it. All right, so this is about TN. Next slide. Okay, the next one is E3. E3 only for Australian workers. Okay, so like E3 initial time 2 years, and just like TN, though initial time 2 years, but then it could also be extended indefinitely. Okay, so it's also only available for Australians. And then the qualification is very similar to H-1B. It's not like TN, you have to qualify those profession on a very limited list of professions. Australian like E3, the qualification is similar to H-1B, and the process is also similar to H-1B. Okay, so we can, two things that we can do is that we can either help you file a change of status in the United States, or the TN worker, they can apply at the local consular. And just like TN, E3 could E3 could also be submitted through IPEN. Okay, this is so far our Trilby system only apply to H-1B, but then gradually we will let Trilby apply to all of our other options. So TN, we are now working on TN, but then majority of the cases are still submitted to through IPEN. Okay, TN, E3, PR, and O1. Okay, next slide. Okay, so next one is B1, B2. We do have a department came and asked us about, hey, we would like to invite a speaker, okay, over. And this speaker will come to give a talk. Okay, and then we want to give this speaker some honorarium. Okay, can we do it? Is this qualified for H-1B? No, this is not qualified for H-1B because H-1B is only for employment. And this one-time talk it's not considered employment. So can this person come in with B1, B2 or ESTA? The short answer is maybe. Okay, so if you want to give honorarium to a person that only come to Penn for a talk, and they said this talk is only for 2 hours, then there are some judgment call that you will need to consider. Okay, it's on the list here on the PowerPoint slide here. You want to make sure this 956 rule help qualify this person. Okay, so number 9 is that this person stay at Penn. The person stay at Penn is no longer than 9 days. And then this person has not received honoraria from more than 5 institutions or organization over the last 6 months. Okay, so this 956 rule that you have to review before you consider to give this person an honorarium. Okay, because that B1, B2 is not a real work visa. It's a short-term business or tourism visa. It's not a work visa. So we want to be especially careful. Okay, so next one. Okay, so this one is O1. O1 is for people of extraordinary ability. And then I just mentioned that more and more people consider TN because of the H-1B $100,000 policy. And O1 is another category a lot of departments start to consider because of the 100,000 policy. If you have a professor, okay, let's say you find an outstanding professor with very strong academic performance and an academic background, has a lot of publication in very top tier journals, and you want to bring him in, and now H-1B is not an option. It's not the best option. Let's say this person is in Germany. Okay. And initially, you guys would like to bring him with H-1B because it's relatively cheaper. Okay. And then, but then now with the $100,000, you reconsider H-1B option. And then O1 would be a better option than H-1B for now. Okay. So if this person is highly achieving, especially in the academic world, then O1 may be an option because O1 are for foreign nationals who sustain national or international extra ability in science, art, education, business, athletic, and demonstrate an extraordinary achievement. Okay, so there are several categories to decide whether this person is extraordinary. Okay, so it may be, well, how many publications this person has, in what kind of tier of a journal this person has achieved, and this person has been working in a highly competitive or renowned organization, or does this person do any peer review, and how many publications this person have. So these are all the judgment call that has to be decided to see whether a person is qualified for O1. So if your department is very, very serious about person, and then the only worry is that you are not sure whether this person is qualified for O1, that you guys can reach out to our department, because for O1, we actually has to forward this case to our outside legal counsel. So if you are very serious, consider a person and then try to bring him or bring her in, that we can help you forward this case to our outside legal counsel and see whether there is a high probability for O1 success. And then if it is, we will help you with coordinate with the law firm and get a case started. Okay, then next one. Next one is permanent residency. Okay, so permanent residency, as you know, that UPenn only sponsor researchers for PR. We normally do not sponsor staff position for PR. Okay, but however, someone who is highly qualified, you really find that this person has some hard to find skills that the local person does not have, and you just cannot find a qualified local U.S. workers to work on this position, then you have to write up some letter and provide some evidence. And then our system will help you connect with a PR review committee. And then they will review the committee and see whether your argument is agreeable. And then they will decide whether they are going to approve or deny, or they need further evidence. So the process is that if there is a staff position, you would like to sponsor this position with PR, you still need to submit a PR e-form. And then our system will direct your e-form or your request to the HR or PR review committee. And then they will decide whether this position is qualified for an exception. If it is qualified, that they will approve it, and then the case will send back to us, and we will start the real process. Okay, next slide. Okay, so for PR, there are several kinds of PR, EB1, EB2, EB1, most common one for our professors, outstanding professor or researcher, or special handling for teaching faculty, or NIW, national interest waiver. We also have standard labor certificate cases. All those are for staff position. So we do have we as Penn, we as employer, we do sponsor several different kinds of PR options, and all these are listed on our website if you want to learn more. And always feel free to reach out to me. Then next slide. Okay, special handling for teaching faculty. This one is only reserved for teaching faculty. Okay, so this is easier to obtain than EB1B. EB1B, we will need to prove that this person has teaching excellence and academic excellence. But special handling case for teaching faculty, that it's easier to qualify, but it will take longer period of time. So the process will be once you submit an e-form to us, after we review it, we will send this case to a law firm that you select. And then the law firm will review your case, and then they will advise what are the options, or what is the best option, or what are the better options for this case. And we will then get back to you. So that's normally how we handle PR request. Then next slide. And as you know that we have two outside legal counsel, one is Goldberg, the other is Classical. Both of them are very good. Okay, but you just have to decide which one to select when you have an O1 case or PR case.
All right, let's see. So, okay, so some questions are coming in here. So let's see. The first one here says, for wages, do you know if Penn takes local prevailing wage into account when determining minimum postdoc wages each year? I mean, for all positions, we take into account the prevailing wage. It's required of us. For like H-1Bs, for example. So I do know that like the July 1st is when the Department of Labor comes out with new wage levels. They typically go up, but that's not for all of them. Sometimes we do see decreases in wage levels. Um, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but it would
Yeah.
apply. It does apply to postdocs as well.
Marisa, so when you say Penn, does that mean the department, or does it mean ISSS? We like for postdoc, we also have to use local prevailing wage. Yeah. If you guys want to sponsor this person with H-1B. But then I'm not sure from the department's perspective, do you guys actually check H-1B prevailing wage? This one I'm not sure because it's, yeah.
She said, I mean, Penn
That's
SAS sends out the minimum wages on July 1.
so
I'm not sure.
yeah,
I
I'm not
mean,
sure. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, well, all I can say is like Madison said, I think that's a question for postdoc affairs. Yeah, I mean, I would just say like we don't at ISSS we just do the prevailing wage determination, so we see what the prevailing wage is, so the minimum wage for that position is, but we don't offer the salary levels themselves. Like we don't do any of that. We just base what you give us and we compare that to what the government says, regardless if it's postdoc or
Mm,
professor or whatever. For all positions, we have to do that.
mm. Yeah, and we let you know if you guys cannot reach the
Hmm.
prevailing wage.
Right.
Um,
Right,
and
what's next?
Kathy, I just add a stamp there, like is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I have, okay, will I have training be available? Um, is Amanda here?
I was gonna say that
Yes,
might be
I
a
am.
question for our.
My camera's not working, but I am here. So we will have iHub training available. We're waiting until we're ready to roll out the J1 side and iHub as well. So we'll make a training that encompasses all of the employee and scholar applications at the same time. So hoping this summer one will be available. But we don't have a specific date just yet.
Mhm. But then if you can check our website, we do have clear instruction on our website for iHub training. Yeah, and then also always feel free to reach out to us for iHub questions.
Let's see. Next one is what does the task worker itinerary mean in the new H-1B portal? The position is for research specialist B. Thank you.
I'm thinking this was meant to be that employment, multiple worksite layer.
Oh, that we were
Yeah,
talking about.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So this is something that's required if there is more than one worksite listed. It is something that we went back and forth on whether to require it for everybody with more than one worksite or only our medical residents. So that is actually not going to be required. If you're seeing it on your list of tasks and it's not going away, please feel free to send an email to our iHub email address and I can go in and remove it for you. And that is true for any iHub specific issues or questions that you're having. Please send an email to the iHub email address that's listed on our website, and I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible so that you can move forward with your applications.
Thank you. Madison. Okay. Next one. Marissa again. I was thinking it would be easier for all if it was just already taken into account, so no adjustments need to be made. I guess that back to the prevailing wage situation. Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what the wages are going to become in July. Again, they typically go up, and then even for specific positions where we don't really know what the prevailing wage is going to be um, for positions until we look at everything in its entirety. Um, just the way it goes. Let's see. Next one. In iHub, under the to-do area, it says Workday employment details, no template attached. Is this the posted job description? I'm gonna say yes.
No, this is the
No.
same. We asked this in IPEN as well. It's the Workday. It's for staff positions only. The employment
Oh,
information from Workday.
yeah. Okay, next one. I have a question for starting in H. Do I select new employment or change of status if moving from a J or F?
That would be change of status if you're
Yeah,
doing
that's
it
change of
within the
status.
US. Something that's different in iHub from iPen is instead of having initial, like we did in iPen that covers change of status or consular processing, in iHub it's very specific, where change of status is if they're going to obviously change status within the US, and new employment actually refers to consular. So if the person is outside the US or if they plan to obtain their H-1B status by traveling outside of the US, applying at a consulate and coming in, unless anyone has a spare $100,000, I don't think that's going to be an option we'll be seeing anytime soon. So change of status is the answer.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Where can I see the federal government prevailing wages? They're posted on the flag um, website now, part of the DOL. You have to have information on the position itself and to make that determination. But they're publicly available on the Department of Labor's flag website. But I would caution against using that without all the information because because you have the different SOC codes, which are the different codes that the government uses to basically categorize each position, and then the different levels are something else that we need to take into consideration and how they're calculated and stuff like that. Next one. Have you heard of anyone having USCIS site visits recently? And if so, do you know if they're going to houses, homes, locations, or for remote employees? I don't think we've had anyone on an H basis with a USCIS web site visit. Do you, Chiwei?
No, we haven't, well, finger crossed, but then we haven't heard any. So yeah, we actually hasn't had any audit since the pandemic. Okay, since before the pandemic. So yeah. But
Let's
we just
see.
want to get prepared. If a person has an additional work site, please just remember to update us as soon as possible because we want to update our records. So in case there is a site visit, then the USCIS will not be surprised. Yeah. And then if there is any site visit, either in person or they may call this person or call your department, then please just reach out to us as soon as possible. And also, most of the time in the past, when we have audit, most of the time the USCIS will call us and make appointment. But nowadays, it's really hard to say what kind of or what type of visit they will pursue. So just want to be very careful.
See. Leo says the new iHub portal is great. Definitely looking forward to the training. Excellent. I also like it. Let's see. I'll send the email. Can you add the email to this chat? I feel like that's referring to your earlier one. What does a task worker mean? I think did we address that? I think.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
itinerary.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Oh yeah, and then you posted that thing. Perfect. Okay, let's see. BPP minimum stipend guidelines are above the NIH stipend requirements. So I would think that would meet or exceed the prevailing wage. I don't know, Chiwe, what do you think?
Yeah, like I would think that will meet or exceed the prevailing wage too. But then the thing is that we are not the person who decide. We are not the organization who decide. The Department of Labor will decide. So it's really hard for us to predict anything.
Yeah, I agree. I would think it would meet, but I don't want to promise it.
Yeah, because the prevailing wage, like they are calculated by the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor, they base the data they receive in similar situated, like they they base their data, they base their calculation on the data they receive in Philadelphia area with similar situated positions. So it's really hard to say. Most of the time we will say yes, but then we do have cases that the NIH stipend or BPP, this like minimum stipend, was actually lower than the prevailing wage
Mhm.
provided by the Department of Labor. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. They post the stock stipend every year. Okay. That's still about the prevailing wage and stuff like that. Hard for us to know. Answer employment can be changed. Yes, it can be changed. Thank you, Amanda, for answering these. Perfect. When will J1 be moving to the iHub portal? Amanda's already got that already. So June,
Yeah, I'll say
Hoping,
beating us to it.
hoping.
yes, the plan is to have it in place by June. We may reach out to a few people to see if they want to pilot test it for us a little earlier than that, as we did with our H-1B application. And I just want to say, on behalf of ISSS, I'm blown away by how great everyone has been at using iHub,
Yeah.
especially with the scant learning tools you've been given. I'm incredibly impressed. And please feel free to reach out to me if you think you're getting a form or a file request that you don't think is necessary for that application. If you need something fixed, if you're having any issues, please reach out to me. This is brand new. We're still working out the kinks a little bit, and we want to know so that we can make it better. So please feel free to reach out to me. And I really just appreciate everyone's willingness to work with us on this. You've been doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, I agree with Amanda. We
Yeah.
we receive a lot of positive feedbacks, and then in the initial stage, we do need a lot of BAs helping us try this Trilby and iHub system out, and then like thank you so much for your patience and your willingness to try new things. For me, it's yeah, when we are thinking to use this new system, I was a little hesitant because I do not know what to expect. But now that yeah, we are very happy, and especially with your partnership.
Yeah, I agree. Is that better? Any other questions? Is that all of them? That's all of them.
Is
Anyone
it
have?
all of them? Yeah, we are so happy to have all of you here, and especially the weather has become warmer. Well, now
Well,
today
I
is
mean, it's
not so
snowing out right
many.
now. All
Okay.
right. I think that's it. Yep, there we are. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Do you have anything to add, Chiwei?
No, I do not.
Okay, perfect. I would just say thank you for everyone, for all your help, and to continue to reach out to us for any questions you have about statuses or iHub, as Amanda was saying, and enjoy the snow.
Is it snowing
It's
now?
snowing, right?
Are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
serious?
it's snowing.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, okay, I'm going out to check. Oh, well, it's yeah, 82 degrees yesterday.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. Ah, interesting.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you.
All right, thank you all. Mhm.